Welcome everyone to year 2 of Not a Real Game Awards Show, the 2024 edition. Originally, I started this video talking about the Game Awards again, and just like last year, I had some frustrations. But frankly, the world has just been way too negative lately, and I don't want to add to that. So rather than talk about boring stuff and complain, I just want to get right into it with you. This is Not a Real Game Awards Show 2024, the yearly video I make talking about the best and worst games I played in the last year. There are some notable absences on screen now, most notable to me being Astro. That game looks so much fun. And also scrolling by on screen while I've been talking have been all of the games that were great but didn't quite make my list. I'll have all of them listed down in the description below in case you want to look into them. They are all worth playing. Also, here's a key for one of the games on that list of honorable mentions, thanks to the Dungeon Clawler team, and make sure you thank them if you get it. Now, we only have one thing to go over before the top 12 games that I played this year, and that's my least favorite part of these videos. The Hall of Shame. The Hall of Shame is my least favorite section to do in these videos because I don't love dunking on games, and this year we almost had 3 games on the list. Dragon's Dogshit 2 is just barely getting away with not landing on here because I really like the game when it actually works. It ran, like you would expect, like dogshit. An inexcusably bad level of optimization, but eventually I'll go back to it when it actually runs, and I'll probably have a lot of fun with it. So for now, it stays off the Hall of Shame, but just barely. Same with Helldivers 2, but for a different reason. To be perfectly honest, despite the absolute cinema that this game can sometimes achieve, and despite it not being on the Hall of Shame this year, it probably deserves to be there. What went down with the PlayStation account bullshit is bad, and it sets a terrible precedent for the industry. The problem is, I still fucking love the game. It went from Game of the Year talks at the start of the year to probably being left off a lot of people's lists entirely now. It doesn't matter who exactly is to blame because the whole situation sucks either way. Now, thankfully, I can just shit on this last one with no remorse. This game is actually taking its rightful place in the Hall of Shame. The Golem game. Genuinely one of the worst games I've ever played. Hours that I wish I could get back, and hours I'm sure every one of the devs wishes they didn't waste making this flaming heap of garbage. With that out of the way though, it's time for the best games that I played in 2024. No. When the team behind Grease announced their next project was going to be something in a similar vein to Grease, I was excited and a little worried. Grease is the prettiest game I've ever played, but it's also barely a game. It is extremely bare bones in terms of gameplay, and while it's very nice to look at, that only goes so far. Neva launched this year, and it delivered for me on 3 fronts. The first is that their storytelling improved. I respect how vague they left some things in Grease, but Neva was significantly more in your face, and because of that, it's able to do a lot more emotionally for players with Neva and her owner Alba. On the second front is gameplay. It actually has gameplay this time. It's still a far cry from what you might expect out of games nowadays, but the combat had actual challenge and strategy to it, and it was fun to get into fights rather than a chore. And by the way, the soundtrack was a solid runner-up for OST of the year. But that third front? Well, I'm happy to present Neva with 2024's Visual Style Award. I mean, just look at this gorgeous game. I don't think I've ever enjoyed something I am genuinely terrible at as much as I enjoy Synthetik. It's fast, it's loud, it spits in your mouth and sucks on your toes, and god damn is it fun. I didn't have nearly as much time to play games this year as I have in previous years, but Synthetik still managed to eat up an impressive 30 hours of my free time in 2024. I love how many different archetypes there are and how each one of them completely changes how you play the core gameplay loop. And then you get one stupidly overpowered upgrade or gun and the run takes another 180. This is the type of game made for sickos and psychos, especially if you're part of the absurd class of people like myself that enjoy playing Engineer. It's great in solo and co-op, and frankly, you're doing yourself a disservice by not having a copy of this in your library. If you take nothing else away from this video, just know that Angerfoot from Free Lives is just about the most fun you can have without taking your shoes off. But don't worry, because the game will do that for you. Angerfoot is unnaturally fluid. The movement is fluid, the gunplay is fluid. There's fluids all over the goddamn floor, and all of it is set to my soundtrack of the year, with some of the sloppiest, slurpiest beats this side of Shit City, where crime is up and times are good. Mouthwashing is one of those elusive games that everyone loves and doesn't want to spoil for new players, and as someone who had a fantastic time with it by going in blind, I'm not going to spoil a thing for you. What I will say is that the dev team behind How Fish Is Made did a fantastic job with their follow-up title here, and they absolutely earned the right to tell the story of Mouthwashing. There is no gimmicky rug pulls here. The topic is heavy, and it's treated with the gravity and magnitude it deserves. Easily one of the best horror games of the last few years. I adore everything that this team makes. I don't have anything to say about Gears of Warhammer 2 that hasn't already been said by someone with a huge collection of plastic figurines. But I'd just like to point out that in 20 years we went from this to this. Video games are fucking awesome. For a game that is so highly touted by people that enjoy Metroidvanias, it would stand to reason as someone that does not enjoy that genre that I would not enjoy Nine Souls. Thankfully, in between all that backtracking slop, this is a joke, please don't stab me, there is a roster of boss fights that stack up against the best of them. I don't know how this team went from making a kinda bare bones 2D side-scrolling horror game you beat in like 3 hours to a beautifully animated stylistic overload 40-hour Metroidvania with some of the most enjoyable combat in a game like this since Hollow Knight. But however they made that jump, I hope they keep taking those jumps. There is an overload of Unreal Engine 5 slop making its way onto Steam, and we could use more indie teams doing creative shit like this. Speaking of Unreal Engine 5, not for no reason, I was one of the very skeptical few for Bloober's remake of Silent Hill 2. If not for the fact that I just have remake fatigue in general, then at least for the fact that my last memory of Bloober was a game where they did an awful job tackling mental health as a subject, which is, you know, a little bit important for Silent Hill 2, and this.
Get it. I can't even fucking imagine why you would have to do this.
Thankfully for all of us, I was wrong. Silent Hill 2 Remake is never going to replace the legendary original title, especially with the final update of the Enhanced Edition going out. It is very worth playing still. But at the same time, it turns out that when Bloober doesn't write their own games, they do a damn good job. Such a good job, in fact, that Silent Hill 2 Remake is the winner of the award for Best Sound Design this year. Any clip I could use to demonstrate just how good the sound design is would also have me yapping over it because I stream my playthrough and streamers never shut the fuck up. But take my word for it, the sound design creeps up on you in the best way, and when it's paired with the phenomenal soundtrack, there are some moments that happen so organically from a combination of the two that I don't think you could find them in any other game. There are tiny little things I'm sure video essayists will nitpick into oblivion for the next 10 years about this game, sure. But if you stop huffing glue for a second and take a step back, or even better, go outside where there's grass and fresh air, the game looks great, It sounds great, and most importantly, it has the right vibe. They added where it could use more exposition, and they left what didn't need anything new as it was. I think the content they added in Angela's section alone justifies the remake's existence. I am more than happy to admit that I was wrong and Bluebird delivered. They deserve their flowers for this one, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting a little burnt out on remakes. Number 4 this year is, without any real competition, truly one of the most unique games I have ever played. Billy Basso's Animal Well is, hands down, one of the most impressive games I will never truly finish. It's also one of those games I can't tell you much about, in Outer Wilds like, because the less you know going in, the better your experience will be. The fact that it's winner of the Innovative Gameplay Award this year should tell you something though. There was so many aha moments I had, and when I finally wrapped it up a few weeks ago and poked around online to see what other people's experiences were, I found that I had missed an entire ARPG within the main game, beyond the ARPG I thought I had figured out. This game is like an onion inside a Russian nesting doll inside a really good flaky croissant. Layers upon layers upon layers, sound design to die for, and visuals that are striking and yet still soft to look at. And on top of all that, with AAA games regularly taking up 150 gigabytes of storage now, it's beyond nice to have a game that matches, if not exceeds them in quality, and only takes up 33.26 megabytes of space on your hard drive. Billy Basso is a magician of the highest order, and despite it only being at number 4, this is probably the most meticulously designed and crafted game on the whole list. Animal Well absolutely deserves a spot in your library. Sometimes there are games that just do what they do so well that it becomes difficult to talk about them, and Thank Goodness You're Here is one of those games. This is probably the single funniest game I have ever played, and all it takes is 3 hours of your life. Set aside a weekend afternoon and play this game, because it is so rare that we get something so unabashedly joyous. This is a happy game. It wants to make you happy. It wants to make you laugh, and your day will be better off for having played it. I won't call it a perfect game, because it's not, and nothing is, but Thank Goodness You're Here is so spot on at achieving unheard levels of absurdity, and it just is exactly what it set out to be. So much so that putting it any lower on the list for me would just feel wrong. More of this, please, whatever this is. We all play amazing, all-time classic games all the time, chewing through our backlog or even as they came out when we were younger. But it's exceedingly rare that we get to play something for the first time, and simultaneously in that moment know that a new game is going down in history as an all-time classic. Balatro is already a classic. Like, will be talked about for the next 20 years and emulated 200 different ways by shitty mobile game companies, classic. A game so original and fun and full of heart and spade and diamond and club that you think about it long after you've closed the EXE. I am very proud to present Not a Real Game Awards show's Game of the Year 2024 to Balatro. One of my favorite bits of Twitter before I finally deleted that shit stain of an app off my phone for good was watching people wonder why a silly little indie poker roguelike game was on a list next to Black Myth Wukong and Shadow of the Erdtree. Insulting it, and then 4 or 5 hours later, quote retweeting themselves and apologizing like, I get it. The most impressive thing to me about Balatro is how deceptively simple it is. There's just one song playing the entire time you play, but it's so good you never get annoyed at it. The modifiers you can use to try to outplay the base rules of the game are so simple, but are so easily scaled to absurd levels that you're never bothered by it. The art is simple, the UI is simple, but it's also perfectly at home for the vibe that Balatro is going for. And actually playing it is interesting as hell. On the face of it, you're just playing poker hands, but the second you start really engaging with the magic that Local Thunk cooked up and pushing up against the walls of the roguelike aspect of the game, a whole new world opens up. This is the kind of game that makes 8 hours accidentally disappear, where you look outside and wonder where the sun went or why the sun's there all of a sudden. Balatro is a modern classic that I'm going to return to for years, with a developer that deserves every ounce of success that he's gotten. Frankly, for a lot of the games on this list, you could easily argue to move their spots around, but no matter how I slice it, I genuinely cannot bring myself to give Game of the Year to any game that isn't Balatro. I'll see you all at next year's awards show. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, I'm just checking in at the end of the video here while all of the supporters are scrolling by on the side, and thank you to all of them for supporting what I do. But I feel like it's important to at least explain a little bit because the 3-month gap between videos is pretty significant. For what it's worth, there are 4 videos that I more or less completed, and then for one reason or another scrapped them. 3 of them veered dangerously close to drama videos about massive YouTubers, which is just not at all what I want this channel to be. And then the last one I just couldn't get done because my life had been falling apart in the last month or so. Just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, the month started with having to put one of our cats down, and it ended with me in the hospital on Christmas Eve, so it was not the best of times. Things have stabilized, thankfully, for the most part, and you can expect to see me around again a lot more with projects of all shapes and sizes. Thank you so much for your patience, and it's good to be back. I'll see you in the next one.